All right, I think we're going live here. Give me a few more seconds. Yes, I stayed up late. I'm just waking up here. All right. Okie dokie. Yes, we are live on YouTube. I am just going to quickly copy and paste the link over into the old chat room, and then I'm going to let everyone into the room. Boom, 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 boom. Wow, everyone was ready this morning. Okay, well, first of all, thank you everyone for joining us today. This is a special episode of Hash Church. We're celebrating the life of Frenchy Cannoli. Really goes without saying, introducing Frenchy, a hashish aficionado of the greatest level. Please mute your mic when you're not speaking, if you don't mind, real quickly there. And just going to introduce Madame Cannoli, Kimberly, she's going to be sort of our my secondary host today, because this is really, she reached out to me. I met her at Lyft not too long ago, where I got to see Frenchy Dreams of Hashish, this documentary dash movie, and it is absolutely spectacular. I had tears in my eyes. It inspired me. I really loved it, and I thought, what better place to join and speak about it than here on Hash Church, something we haven't done for a long time. Most of you guys have been on Hash Church before, some of you haven't. So I'm gonna pass it over to Madam Cannoli now. She can introduce everyone and we can talk about what we're gonna be speaking about today. So Boom Shankara Mahadev. Let's get this party started.
Thank you so much for having me. We didn't get to talk after the film. I was very touched that you came to see it when it was screened in Vancouver. So thank you for that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Maybe, it's really hard for me to see everybody here in a kind of efficient way, but let me just go across the top, and Bill, you're next in line. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
It's good to see you, Kim. Hi, everyone. I'm Cherry Blossom Bell. I'm Frenchy Cannoli's formal apprentice, and I lived and worked with him and Madame Cannoli, and traveled with them for over 7 years, teaching workshops, making hash, and learning from both of them equally. And now I'm currently, present day, I'm the director of manufacturing at Heritage Hash Co. Heritage Mendocino. We're located in Ukiah, California. We're at 1076 Cunningham Street in Ukiah, and we call ourselves the world's first public cannabis hashery. We are a retail location, but you can see into my lab and see the product being made as you buy it, and you can go up to the window and ask questions. So it's really beautiful, because I really feel like it really feels that value of educating the public and keeping it open to the public, and paying it forward in that light, like Frenchy did, in a sense, to many of us, who was just open source and just answered anyone's questions. So anytime anyone comes to the window and knocks and has a question, I will take the time out of my day to answer it in spirits, in the spirit of Frenchy. And yeah, that's me. I'll keep it brief because I know we have a couple people to get through here.
So thanks, Bill. That's really sweet. It looks like Craig, you're next on the list. Craig, could you hear me?
Yeah, good morning. I'm going to keep it pretty brief. We're boarding a flight. We've had all sorts of travel changes. So I just wanted to make sure I was able to jump on and say good morning to everyone. I'm Craig from Alpenglow Farms here in Southern Humboldt County. My wife and I, back there, Boss Mama, have been at it for a few years up here in Humboldt. And, I just want to share, just in case I do get cut off, that when Frenchy came to visit our farm for the first time and we walked around and drove around on the four-wheeler to check everything out, he was just so happy to see how we're cultivating, just on the natural surfaces of the land, following the contours and working with what the land provided, and just on the side of a mountain. And he was just ear to ear grinning as he does and laughing and just, it was just absolutely amazing to share our space and just have him visit our community and get excited. This is when he first was coming into the Emerald Triangle. So I'll leave it at that, and much love to everyone, and look forward to hearing as much conversation as I can through this morning.
Thank you for joining us. That's really lovely.
Thank you.
Next in line is Etienne.
Hello, I'm Etienne. I own a dispensary in California, and Frenchy came to me when he first was trying to get involved, and I was very honored that he did, and humbled, and just gave him advice as I would give anybody. And needless to say, he heeded it, heard it, and I was able to spend wonderful moments with him. My most memorable would be our 200 questions we shared, which was a lot of fun, which I need to do with Bubble Man and all of you. I've got these 200 cannabis questions. I'll narrow it down to 50, but that way, you know which ones. But it's just humbled and honored to be here as, a fellow hash appreciator. And thank you, Madam Bell, for keeping the tradition alive. And thank you, Madam Cannoli, for doing everything you can to keep your wonderful spouse's memory alive, because he left so much for us all. And thank you for continuing in that. So humbled and honored to be here.
And that afternoon, it's funny, I was just looking the other day, I found the file with it's 2.5 hours, the two of you talking and answering the questions. And there's some real gems in there that I need to dust off and post. You got him to tell some great stories. So yeah, we definitely need to share that with the world. Looks like from the top of my page, the next in line would be our friends at Dragonfly Earth Medicine. Hi, Josh and Kelly.
Hey, family.
Hi, everyone. It's so lovely to see you all this morning. It's nighttime here, but we wouldn't miss this commemoration for the world, really.
6 o'clock in the afternoon is actually a pretty good time to do a hash church, so we're feeling pretty stoked about that. We're here at the GWA Smoke Club in Barcelona. We were here a month ago with Steve and Green Life, Steve and Kwani from Green Life. And when we came to Barcelona, we really, really felt the impact of Frenchy Cannoli and all of the work that Frenchy's put out there, because the love for hash is here in a way that you see it in a lot of places, but there's just a huge amount of appreciation here. We've been really taken in by the GWA family, feeling really blessed to be here. We know Marcus is coming soon. Most importantly, we're just really thankful for Frenchy, and to have mentors in your life like Frenchy and elders that really hold the space in a way that's classy and fun and strong is something we always appreciated from Frenchy and you, Kimberly, and everyone that's worked with him in the past. We feel very honored to be here today. We have a lot of respect for everyone that's on this panel and everyone that's listening. Thank you so much. You want to say one more thing?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that one thing, that we are focused on in Dragonfly Earth Medicine is just really education. Education for community, education for regenerative medicine. And connecting with Frenchy on that level was definitely one of the highlights of my life. He changed the way I thought. He challenged so many ideas. He would take apart everything that you would say and want to rebuild it in a Frenchy way. And because of that, I have so much love for him and the education that this movie and Kimberly that you continue to spread. And like Josh said, I am telling you, his energy is felt so strongly here. The love for hash, temple balls, people are talking about it the Frenchy way. Look, I'm rolling it the Frenchy way. It feels so amazing to be here. And honestly, I'm really feeling like he's here this Spanibus. So
and there's
to be here with you.
There are a lot of Moroccan influence here, which we know is deep in Frenchy's heart too. Thank you so much, everyone. We look forward to the show.
Next up on the little bar across the top. Mark, the two of us haven't met, so nice to meet you.
Hey, Kimberly, how are you?
Good.
Hey, Marcus. Hey, Etienne, everybody. Josh and Kelly, good to see everybody. Wade, so great to see Wade. So, Frenchy and I only met once. We tried to meet a couple times, but as you know, Frenchy drew a crowd wherever he went, and we always found it 10 deep whenever we came to his booth, and we were never able to hook up at a couple of the cups we were trying to hook up. So when we finally did meet, it was an honor to meet him, and it was at a Gold Key event in Las Vegas a few years back. And it was just so cool because he was actually part of the registration process. So anybody who went to that event met Frenchy. But then we had a little moment later on over by the pool where, yeah, I mean, so what I got from him, just because I remember watching him at these events, is again, to speak what Josh and Kelly just said, how he was the educator, the consummate educator, and how there was a whole group of people around him that was absorbing everything he was saying and everything he was doing. And that's why, like in so many ways, he's like people who've passed before who have left such an inspiration in their educational time on this brief period that we're on this shining blue ball. And it was so meant for him to be that educator who brought his passion and his journey that only he singularly took in life to, discover hash and hashish and bring it to everyone. And now every time we smoke it, we could remember him. And it's just such an honor to be here and such an honor to know you, Kimberly. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Nikki, it looks like you're next. So happy you can join us deep in the snow, snowed in there in Mendocino.
Yeah, thank you. It's really deep up here. I mean, we got another 6 inches or so last night. So Swami has been out scraping snow and ice off the solar panels right now to make sure we continue to have power. And it has been going in and out quite a bit. So if we fade away, just understand we're just out hanging out with the snowman. And it's pretty thick up here. Anyway, it's an honor to be here. Swami will be back in a second. I know he'd love to say hi too. And of course, it's always an honor to be in a room with such an amazing group of people. Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you, Marcus, for bringing us all together. And as always, it's wonderful to honor Frenchy. I mean, this is a man we're going to be talking about forever. And he's really going down in the books as one of the greats. And it's just so happy to have known him and spent time. And this movie is amazing. Swami hasn't even seen it yet. He's going to get to see it April 29th, finally. And it's...
Uh-oh, there goes the electricity. Well, let's go further up north to Humboldt, Dylan, and let's just try your bandwidth.
We don't have any intention of stopping and doing it in honor of Frenchy every day. So thank you all.
Thanks, Nikki. Sorry, Dylan. There we go. Dylan, there you are.
There we are. Hey, good morning, everyone. And good morning, Kim and Josh and Kelly and everybody else on here. What a honor to be invited with all of you folks to talk and honor Frenchy. I'm up in Honeydew in the Mattole Valley, and really I found Frenchy when he found us out here in the Mattole. He Frenchy and Leo met my good friend Josh Free and at Empress Farms, and Josh, they really hit it off right away, and Josh brought Frenchy out to the valley, and Frenchy fell in love with our little valley, and we just all fell in love with Frenchy, our little community, and he became a mentor for us all, and really opened our eyes to what we knew existed. We just didn't understand it, and still we're learning, but this connection between place and plant and people and terroir and what that all really means. And And he really mentored us in that idea of appellations, and that this was something really important, and that we needed to take it seriously, and that if we wanted to talk about how the weed that we grow here in the Mattole Valley and in Humboldt is special, that it's not something you can just lightly say. That if you're going to talk about this, you really need to take it seriously and have a respect for the old traditions of what these words like appellations mean. And he was really intent on that, and that, like, don't say that unless you are serious and you're going to do the work, and there's science and there's work, and you can't just throw this around lightly. And so he really was a mentor, and he told us books to read and sent us links, and came and visited and talked with us and introduced us to all sorts of people. And so, you know, I just what an honor and a privilege to have gotten to know Frenchy and have him in our home, and have him, you know, come and cook for us sometimes, and just, you know, what great experiences. So he certainly, his spirit is still here with us, and with the work that we're trying to continue on, he's an inspiration for us for sure. So thank you, Frenchy. Thank you, Kimberly.
Oh, my pleasure. Wade, it looks like you're next on our little list. So nice to meet you. I have seen you virtually, but I don't think we've met physically.
Hi, Wade Laughter here. And no, we haven't met specifically, but I could say some of the same things that Dr. Marks said about the couple of times I managed to run into Frenchy. He was surrounded by a mob, and I've always been a bit of a hermit. And so I just gave him plenty of space. I actually did invest a couple of times in some of his work for my own personal joy, if you will. And yeah, I would say this, my experience of Frenchy, as I've watched some of the videos he's made, I feel like as a traveler, he discovered a culture and developed a passion for it in different countries where traditional hash making was being practiced. And he took the heart, if you will, of those cultures and brought it to the work here in the West, and taught us. Again, his approach was, I don't have any secrets. I want to share with you what I've learned, and maybe I'll learn something too. I could be talking about me, but that was my sense of Frenchy, that he was so open to the people who did manage to fight through the crowd and talk to him. And I did actually, a couple of years back, just before the Emerald Cup, the Dragonfly Earth Medicine family, hi Josh and Kelly, had a gathering. And I can't remember the woman's name whose place it was, but yeah, Frenchy came, he brought his big hookah, and I did have a chance.
Garcia.
Blessings, thank you, Josh. Yes, and yeah, that was a wonderful night. But again, I got there early and he got there late, and I did have a chance to share his work directly through his hookah. And that is a lot where I got my sense of his love for what he was doing, that I don't have any secrets. Here it is, drink deeply of what I have experienced in my life. And that's an inspiration to me, because that's a lot where my love for this plant comes from. I've seen what the plant can do for people. And so, yeah, I'm a medicine maker. Frenchy was a medicine maker and an inspiration to me. So thank you for this event. And yeah, it took me a few hours and a pretty strong discussion with my wife for me to get out of the house and off the mountain and into a town where there's electricity and internet, because I wanted to be here today. And I may not stay till the end of the church because it is still snowing up here. And we lost power and internet on Monday. Today's Sunday. And we're supposed to have a couple more feet between now and Tuesday, and a couple more feet by Friday. So yeah, I want to get home. We're well situated and everything at home. But this event and my love for Frenchy and his inspiration to me was enough to get me off the hill to join this group. And I'm really grateful to be here. So thank you for the event. Thank you for all of you who showed up, and much love.
No, thank you for joining us. That's so sweet. Did I miss anybody? I'm not a master Zoom. Marcus, is there anybody that I didn't reach because I can't see them for some reason?
No, I think there is one person in here as Zoom user with their camera off. I'm not sure who that is, but yeah, it seems like we got through everyone else here on the panel. Oh, Zoom user is now gone.
Kimberly, Swami's here now. If you want to talk to Swami.
Lovely.
I just brought him in. Okay, hold on a second. Fresh from the solar panels in the snow.
Hi, everybody. I'm a little out of breath. It's 30 inches deep out there.
Oh, shit.
Wow.
Last night, I had to go out and scrape off the satellite dish thing, and I had to scrape off the solar panels as they had a bunch of snow. The snow was over my boots, wow. And my fingers were cold. But that's the report.
You're talking about Frenchy.
Well, okay, Frenchy would love snow, I'm sure. Frenchy, well, what a great friend he was. And we had a lot of good times together. And we had that special connection from Goa, you know. And we have a lot of mutual friends who knew Frenchy as Cami back in Goa, right? He was a whole nother character back there. But he realized his full, true life's purpose when he came to California, right? Because he was looking for the best, to make the best hash. And he finally realized to make the best hash, you need the best flour. And when he came here, I think the terpenes blew the top off of his head. And so that was just the whole thing that he dived in. And he was kind of, in many ways, chronology-wise, he was kind of a late comer to the scene. But boy, he got right to the middle as soon as he could. And he found the best farms all in Northern California. And he made the best hash. Okay, I'm going to change my socks because they're soaking wet.
And last but not least, the mystery Zoom user is Beard. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Brett Bird. I guess I'm Zoom user. I'm not very savvy with this stuff, but I'm really glad to be here and very honored to be a part of this. Frenchy meant a lot to me, and I never met anybody with such a passion and love for this, and willing to share his passion and love. And it really means a lot to me, and I try to pass on some of what he instilled in me and to everybody that wants to hear anything about hash. I'll keep it short. I don't really want to start crying on you guys.
So
it's okay to cry.
Yeah.
We love him and we miss him, and it's okay to share that we love and we miss him. That's why we're here.
So Etienne, I've been trying to get you to see the movie, and so many other people have been asking me about when they can see it. So we're going to make it happen April 29th. It's going to be available via Vimeo, and we have a bunch of people all over the world that are going to be scheduling some in-person events so that some people can get together and watch it together, smoke together. And then after that, we're going to do a live stream so that we can talk about the films, so that I can get the filmmaker online with us, and you guys can ask him some questions, and we can just hear what y'all think about the film and the experience.
I can't thank you enough for finally putting it online. Unfortunately, every time that it's aired. My mother's in hospice, so I've had to travel back to Mississippi to visit and be with her. So it's just been a series of unhappy accidents, unfortunately, and I am beyond excited, and I will have my own little watch party here, probably with my Veterans Action Council friends. We'll probably get together and do a little watch party out of love, because Frenchy was an inspiration to all of us.
We also haven't seen it yet, so we're waiting to see it. We were going to maybe get to see it at the Hive in California while we were there, but it didn't get to happen. Luna was there, so that was beautiful to spend time with her. Lena, and yeah, just really stoked to see it up in Alberta, because I think it's going to be in Edmonton where we see it at the Grow Off.
Yeah.
So that might be a really fun place to finally see it. And I know the family here in Barcelona want to see it as well.
And a number of the social clubs are going to hold a little screening. So that's going to be an option for a lot of people. So that's lovely. And shout out to the Grow Up for being so supportive of the film. You know, they kind of set this precedent of screening the film and selling tickets, and then they're donating the money to the nonprofit that we're working with, the Origins Council, because Dylan and some of the farmers featured in the film are doing a little project on cannabis terroir. And so we're using the donations to help support those scientific studies. So we're pretty stoked about that.
And we're incredibly grateful, Kimberly, for the help that you and the support, you know, both financially, but just with you hold a lot of that wisdom that Frenchy shared with all of us. So it's we're really, all of us out here in the Mattole are incredibly grateful to have you be participating and helping with us in that work, and that's you know, part of the spirit of Frenchy living on for sure. And we're going to try to do right by him. It's complicated science, and it's not something that's been done. So it's certainly challenging, but through working with Origins Council, and Swami, I appreciate you as well. I know you're on the board of OC, and you know, they've connected us with some really incredible advisors, and we're working with LeafWorks, who is put together an experiment that we will be diving into full scale this summer, and really trying to make this causal link connection between the place and the plant and how it expresses. And so thank you for mentioning that, Kimberly.
No, my pleasure. I was just reading the newspaper yesterday that, you know, so this whole concept of having a terroir that's then used to create an appellation, which is this legal structure to kind of protect the small farmers for these recognized agricultural products. They have this precedent in Europe where they've used it for cheese and for wine and for you know, sausage products in Spain. But unfortunately, in the US, we don't have much respect for this. I just saw yesterday that the government had ruled that they're going to allow American Gruyere to be sold as Gruyere, when this is a product that has a named protection in Europe. So it's a little frustrating that somehow this concept is not honored, or that it's somehow appropriated and just like anybody can use it if they make a cheese that has holes in it and has been aged for more than 90 days. So I think that's kind of a similar thing with some of the challenges our industry has experienced with legalization, having these like mega grows that flood the market with product that is, you know, doesn't meet the same standards. There needs to be a way to differentiate so that the dispensaries, the consumers, other people are able to have access to quality that they want. And Frenchy, that was his whole focus with his travels. You know, one of the main things was he always wanted to have access to the best product, and realized you had to go to the farmers, that the source of the quality was the farmers. And so I can't think of a better way to support his legacy than to fund things that emphasize that quality and help the legacy farmers have their correct place in the marketplace, in the efforts of what we're doing.
Yeah, Frenchy and I talked about that, as you well know, Kimberly, forever and ever and ever, and we had some very energetic discussions in the typical Frenchy way. And I'd lived in South America enough to know that shouting and screaming is just passion, not anger, right? But for all of you who don't know so much about appellation, in France, which, as you say, it started hundreds of years ago, first with Roquefort cheese, because some king wanted to be sure it was Roquefort cheese. There's like 10 pages of appellations on farm goods, on agricultural products, crops in France. There's appellation butter, there's saffron, there's honey, there's lavender, all these different things, which are like French basil, so on. They're special products that get their special flavor and quality from the soil that they're grown in, and from the culture of the farmers who are the ones doing the growing. And the farmers are the carriers of the intellectual property. And when you have a collective of farmers, they have a group knowledge, a group understanding, wisdom that develops over the years. Now, some people would argue that in the cannabis world, we haven't been doing it quite long enough to have that fundamental, wisdom of the people. But we do have a lot of that, and we do know, and we do share that knowledge. And that's one of the key things about an appellation, that the standards, practices, and varietals are determined by the farmers themselves, not by a state bureaucratic department. And that's key also to the French way of doing, which is adapted also by the entire European Union. So there are many, many, many agricultural crops that do have what they call the flavor or the taste of the place where they grow, right? Curiously enough, in the United States, there is not a single true French-style appellation. They do not exist. And there you'll see driving around certain wine areas, and they'll say appellation on the sign, and they legally cannot use that word. The technical word is geographic indicator, right? They can use a geographical indicator if it's grown in that area. We have it now in cannabis as well, because you can put the name of your county and say it was grown in that county if you can verify that 100% of the product in the jar is from that county. So we do get county of designation, but that's simply a geographical. There are no standards, practices, and varietals for that. So that's the key to appellation, how it's going to play out in the United States. California was the first state to actually legally put that word and those qualifications onto any product, and it's cannabis. It doesn't exist for any other product in the U.S., right? Everyone in the U.S. says, all lawyers you talk to say, well, just get a trademark. It's the same thing. And you kind of look at them and say, well, you don't quite understand this, do you? Because a trademark can be bought and sold. It can be moved. It's owned by somebody. There are people in Florida selling Humboldt, this and that and the other thing, right? So the thing is that an appellation only belongs to the farmers who create it. And they have to then create a business entity of some sort to enforce it. And they also then create their own standards, practices, and varietals. And so I'll kind of let off on this because I could go deep down in the hole like Frenchy always used to do. But if you have other questions, and thanks also for mentioning the Origins Council, because we started in 2015. That's 8 years ago now, folks. We started in 2015 talking about appellation, Janine and I and Justin Calvino for the Mendocino Appellation Projects. That then grew into Origins Council, and so many more people came on board. And now all the legacy growing areas are represented by Origins Council, and we'll keep getting more people too. So Origins Council is really the only spokesperson, Janine particularly adept at it, for the small farmer of the legacy growers of California. So it needs all our support that we can give it.
Yeah, I'm really excited that the film is donating 20% of all of our proceeds forever to the efforts of the Origin Council, because I think that, it's not only important for California, you guys are setting a precedent for things that are going to happen all over the world. And I keep thinking, if you guys can create the model and get legal recognition, then maybe we can help protect the legacy farmers in Afghanistan or Lebanon once things legalize worldwide, because I just feel like those traditions, Northern India, those places where we had such, you know, profound experiences when we were young, they need the protection as well. So this work that we're doing, it's not just for us, it's really to set a standard around legacy cannabis worldwide, outdoor sun-grown cannabis, and this tradition of making hashish in these really old cultures, that I think it's really important for humanity. Because
I agree 100%, Kimberly, because that was always part of my reference too, because I haven't smoked as many places as Frenchy probably, but I miss Northern Africa. But I've smoked in Israel, I've smoked in Afghanistan, in Amsterdam, in Nepal, even in China, you know, so it's like Thailand. So it's really a worldwide thing. And one of the things that working with hashish, it is to remember that this is a plant that's been, you know, helping humanity for, you know, at least 10, 20,000 years, right?
Uh-oh, looks like the Mendocino bandwidth has struck again. While we wait for
and also, as you just said, Kimberly, protect the small farmer in Morocco, in Lebanon, anywhere that people are growing quality and have a skill that is an ancient tradition. You know, walking along the terraces in northern India in the mountains, and you turn around a corner and you see this terrace, and all of a sudden there's 20-foot high cannabis plants there with birds roosting in the branches and so on, and it's right next to the compost pile, and then they come down, and there's some lady, she's rubbing this hash like this, and you get a little smoke from it and so on. It's just, you know, you go over to visit somebody and they invite you in for tea and biscuits, and then they light up a chillum, you know, so, and you're smoking now a chillum with the mayor of the village and the director of the school system, right? And it's just part of their culture that, you know, is a whole sort of way of life. And, you know, I still remember the first little old farmer who taught me how to use a chillum way back in the mountains of Nepal. And so he said, no, that's not right. That's not right. Here's how you do it. And, you know, just wanting to share that sort of stuff. And so it's a tradition that we're part of, and we need to be proud of it and share it.
I'd just like to add that India also taught us how to recognize the small farmers with their protest that happened in India last year. The Indian farmers protest really stood up for small farmers and how they can outproduce corporate farming while producing a higher quality. And India really does uphold community farming and community gardening. And that's another nice aspect for us to learn, which Frenchy also kept that India connection and all that knowledge going. I really appreciate everything that was said. And also welcome, Lena. It's beautiful to see you today.
Also, I just wanted to add one more thing. Dylan, you said, you know, we hope that we can live up to Frenchy's expectations and live up to, you know, his moral compass. And I believe that that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about, you know, every single one of those trichomes, those crystals, to be farmed by a small farmer in community, in recognition of the soil in that area and in that terroir, while sharing seeds with the local community of what grows best there, while then sharing education on how to make the best resins, you know, and that is living up to Frenchy's moral compass. And that is the importance of his legacy. And Kimberly, this movie, and everybody here who's watching, and everybody who continues to keep Frenchy's voice alive. And it isn't just about him, it was about the education that he was putting forward, which now becomes, you know, surrounded in heart space and community and love and medicine and people. And it continues to come back to the farmers and the people. And I just think that that's the legacy that we have to live up to. And it's incredibly important for us to continue to spark that bright light that he carried always.
I think it's that element, you know, he used to always say we made too much of him, and that it wasn't about him, it was about the traditions, and it was about this evolution of passing on the traditions and how important that was. So thank you for emphasizing that aspect of community, because
I'll just say one thing.
just come on.
Hi guys, this chillum is for Frenchy. It's a chillum of dry seed for remember your soul. Your soul, Frenchy, big up.
Blessings and love.
Listen, when you brought up the India just now, I had a flashback. I researching the sort of the origins of the organic regenerative food movement, and I can't remember the guy's name, but some English scientist who went out to India in the early 1900s, and he was going to teach all those Indian people how to grow using industrial chemicals, salt-based petroleum chemicals, and he was going to increase their yield and so on. And so he was doing that. And then after about 4 years, his yield started to go down and his quality wasn't very good. And he noticed that the farmers around who weren't doing what he told them to do were actually doing better, that their crop was more. And so he started to research, hey, what are these people doing? Well, they've only been doing this for the last 10,000 years or whatever, and they've kind of figured out how their environment interacts with their products, and they have special cultivars, and they were using manure, and they were using organic methods that we now are referring to as regenerative methods. So primitive local little farmers eking out a tiny little crop were doing way better than this fancy scientist from England. And he had the smarts and the humility to turn around and say, I can learn from these people. And so he did. And out of that came the Rodali and all these other things that we call organic. But it originated with little local farmers in India who've been doing this for, I don't know, 7,000 or 8,000 years. So we have a tradition, and that moral standard that you brought up is a really great thing about how to be honest with yourself and honest with your food and honest with your medicine. And how that has to pervade our whole life and be part of our basic ethic and what we share with people, because this is truth we're working with here.
A lot of that is what we try to embody with the DEM Pure certification, and it is beautiful. There's 5-6 people here from that, and we really do work our best at projecting that. And
just recognizing that we are creating local Appalachians, but we are worldwide. We have this capability to talk to you all live. We have these capabilities to learn from each other, no matter what language. Boy, Google Instant Translate is amazing, and how quickly that we can communicate with each other. But this thread of our connection to nature and connection to community is everything that Frenchy was about, and that continues to move forward.
Also, and Peter Proctor wrote a really amazing book from, he's from New Zealand, went to India, One Man, One Cow. One Man, One Cow. And it's a biodynamic, way of closed loop farming in India.
Well, I'd like to say a little something about Frenchy. Our paths crossed more than a few times for certain. And one of the things I loved about him, as everyone's already mentioned, is, I thought I was passionate about hashish. I thought I'd met passionate people about hashish. I had traveled to hashish countries, and I had gone to the Maha Kumbh Mela and smoked hashish with the Babas on the sides of the Ganges. I did all sorts of amazing, I traveled to the Bobo Shanti communities in Jamaica and helped make hash with those guys with the lamb's bread, and did all of these sorts of things. But and I'm also French. That's also my lineage. Is I'm about 50 to 60% Français, and so we were able to speak French when we would bump into one another. But his absolute passion was just radiating off the man in a way that you really kind of had to be numb or dead inside, to not almost be overwhelmed by it. And so, you know, obviously I love hashish. I love talking about hashish. I love connecting the dots. But Frenchy really took it to another level. And I didn't get to spend as much time as I would have liked to with him, as we were on similar paths in different places that seemed to cross paths. But the last time I got to hang out with him was in a very private setting. As Wade mentioned earlier, Frenchy often had a crowd around him. And I had showed up at HQ in Barcelona, my friend David's club, a club of which I was one of the first members of 8 or 9 years ago when I first went into that club when it was brand new. And he said, you know what, I'm busy right now. If you just want to go upstairs to my little private area there, I'll come and see you later. And I went up there, and it was just Frenchy sitting up there by himself. And he didn't even tell me that Frenchy was up there. So Frenchy and I got to sit in HQ and smoke hash and play with hash and talk about hash. And it was a lovely way for us to spend our last time together. So I'll definitely hold that dear and remember that for the rest of my life. And just thank Frenchy for everything that he brought to the community. You know, there's all sorts of different people doing all sorts of different things, but he really made a mark that's not going to be going away. And Wade also mentioned the way he brought that heart of the culture. You know, as I experienced legal cannabis in Canada, as I experienced, Vail purchasing Whistler, these corporate entities that try to come in and eliminate the culture that existed at the core. And whenever they do it, it ruins good things. So to have someone like Frenchy take that core information out of Himachal Pradesh and out of Malana and Parvati Valley and these very special zones that a lot of people have never been able to go to and visit, and sort of bring that into the new world. I'll be honest, it's really what Legends of Hash was always about, trying to pay homage to the elders, to the culture. You know, I meet a lot of people in the cannabis industry. I've been doing this since the 60s, I'm one of the OGs. But then I like to think of the actual people who were doing it 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 years ago, 1,000 years ago. And we can't forget about them either, because they're the true OGs. And I think that, Frenchy carried them with him wherever he went, and he emanated that energy. And I see everyone on this panel, will now carry that with us for the rest of our hashish days. So once again, Boom Shankara Mahadev to Frenchy. I think it might be time to smoke a bowl in his honor.
I noticed that Lena jumped on, and I just wanted to see if she wanted to say anything really quick, because she didn't get a chance to say anything. Miss Lena, hi, sister.
Hi, Belle. How's it going?
Good.
I was technical difficulties this morning. Thanks for Dylan for saving the. Just to piggyback off of the beautiful words you guys have already said, I mean, Frenchy wanted us just to lead with passion and love what we were doing, dedicated to what we were doing. If you're not doing that, I mean, what are you doing with your life? So it was always be in the pursuit of happiness and betterment. So that's how I like to lead. And I know all of you here on this panel love to lead as well. It was an honor to be able to work closely with Frenchy and under him and learn from him. The first moment I met him, I had just gotten into hash making and just wanted to better my hash making skills, and just the radiance he emanated in the room the moment I met him. I was just sold. He could have been talking about anything, and whatever it was, I want to do exactly that and learn exactly that and be that person. It was just beautiful. So he definitely helped me further my love for hash making, and he really believed in me well before I believed in myself. So it's pretty cool. And the moment I brought him my first hash after taking his class, he was just mind blown. And that really kind of just gave me a lot of determination and knowing that I was going on the right path and working with the right material. So yeah, really happy to have known him.
I can't get over how some of your recent posts if they hadn't been posted under your name, it would look like stuff Frenchy posted 5-6 years ago. Especially the ones where you're really showing the full dimension of brightness, the way he did, where he would line the washes up so that you could see the variation in color. And then when they pancake, it's just such a joy to see that, because, you know, kind of that was the ultimate goal, was to harvest the trichomes in such a way that you were getting almost the pure resin. And then when you leave it for a second, it just falls under its weight. It just feels like there's, I don't know, some kind of, like we're talking about this tradition and this evolution, like those things connect back to humans, to great grandparents that, you know, we don't even know that we have somehow in foreign countries. And it's a beautiful thing.
I just want to add, Alina, I'm actually smoking your stuff right now.
Hey, nice.
In my 3-hole ball. It's amazing. And to that note, like it's incredible. Kimberly is right. You know, when I see your photos, I'm like, it looks exactly like Frenchy's work. It actually kind of brings tears to my eyes a little bit, because, you know, I'm just like, you know, that you really nailed it, and your pressed hashish is just so beautiful. It really hits home, and it's actually all I've been smoking for the past 2 weeks. So thank you, girl.
Have like made my year. As always, credit to the farmer. I'm nothing without them. Like, I'm working with some amazing farmers in a beautiful valley. And I definitely feel Frenchy's spirit in my workspace. You know, I'm definitely harnessing him and trying to make him proud. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, and that's, you know, going back to the farmer again, you know, like that's, thank you for mentioning that, Lena, because, you know, I love that, you know, we are only as good as the product that we work with. And really shout out to the farmer and to the land. Frenchy used to tell me, I think the most beautiful thing about you, Lena, is, and even Bird, you guys work with, you work very closely with a farmer. And you really represent the land and that area. And I think in my experience, that's just been the most profound impact, is environmental. Frenchy even used to say, you know, when he was traveling and producing countries, you know, when he was traveling in the mountains, people wouldn't care that he was the one who made the hash. They asked him how far he went to go make that hash, what altitude, what valley did he go to make that hash. And it's the same thing where as a craft hashishin, you know, we kind of use the terroir, or you know, the land as a compass to source our material. Like, you know, you represent the Matal Valley, the Lost Coast. Bird represents Willits. You know, and I have the honor to represent a lot of, I also Matal and other farmers, Bryceland, all these other Comchi, and it's always these genetics, you know, and it's these genetics and these strains that farmers, you know, the neighbors have had for a while. You know, they've been growing it for a while. You know, it's been traded amongst that same area, so it's almost like that plant. Those plants really know that area and that land, and it has the most profound impact when it comes to the terpene profile. So again, it always comes down to bringing it back. It always comes down to the land and the farmer. So yeah, just want to give a shout out to all the farmers who are on here right now. Thank you. I appreciate all of you very much.
And in Frenchy's words, I mean, unless you're doing it all yourself, which is really hard to do, we don't eat and we don't smoke without the farmer. So we have to give them the utmost respect and love and take care of them, because they take care of us and they take care of the land they're working on and the surrounding environments. Like, a lot of work goes into this. So thank them regularly and support them. And the
well
heirloom
said, Lena.
So hard to preserve too.
shout out to the fungi as well. We couldn't do it without the fungi, the symbiotic relationship, that missing component that allows the plant to express the terroir, you know, because that's really what cannabis is doing for us. It's allowing us to experience these different areas. And I love the fact that there are very specific hashish cultures in the world, but I also love the fact that there are terroirs for us to explore and to meet for the very first time. There's going to be some zones that cannabis is produced in the upcoming decades that will express, I'm certain, unlike anything we've ever experienced. And right now, there's no doubt about that California is definitely the center of the cannabis universe, and there's some other amazing terroirs out in the world. But I sometimes think that we're going to be discovering some new ones as well here with this lovely plant that we all have such a wonderful relationship with.
I wonder about the whole aspect of breeding. You know, when Frenchy was in the mountains, he rented a field from some farmers up there for years. And the farmers used to cultivate those fields by breaking it up and throwing seeds out, you know, year over year, and just letting the rain work its magic. And after the first year, Frenchy asked them to stop doing that and to let the plants just go back to their wild state and respond to the environment that they were in. And I had the most amazing conversation with Kevin Jodry at one of the Ganjier council meetings, where he talked about how if you allowed the natural cultivar to express itself, there was the elements of the humans that lived in that region and what they needed, and that their needs were going to be slightly different based on the environment that they were in, and not meaning not only like the weather that was there, but like if you're up north in Canada and it's cold, maybe you don't want to be as energetic as somebody who's living in the southern hemisphere and they're on a beach, or vice versa. And so kind of to your point, we have humans that right now are directing the breeding of certain cultivars. What would happen if we threw the seeds out there and let nature kind of develop a cultivar based on what they understood the needs of the humans living there to be? I wonder how that might differ. And there's also this element of humans breeding for very high levels of THC. Everybody knows I don't smoke anymore. The THC is too much for me. It overwhelms me immediately. And so I just wonder, in its natural environment, looking at some of the studies that were done, for example, in Israel, at one point, the government commissioned studies using material from busts that they had gathered. And this was like around 2014. And the THC level in the material that they were getting from these smuggling operations was so low. Like the charas was 3 to 7%. The hashish was less than 17%. But I remember getting really, really high in India when we were smoking that stuff. So is it really necessary or a benefit, these high THC levels? Because I know in California, when we sell to dispensaries, they're like less than 30%. We won't even look at it. We won't even talk to you. And I'm just wondering if this is like, is this the right path for humans to approach how the plant's cultivated and what makes it to the shelves in a commercial environment?
I think a lot of it has been driven by prohibition, because prohibition drove a lot of neophyte smokers, and then when they smoked, they got so high. Experienced growers, and as Frenchy and others have taught us, and one of the things that we found when we were initially testing back in 08 and 09 is we had a lot of my first 1,500 tests before we even released the results. We found that a lot of the chemical structure was identical. Almost 90% of the cannabis was the same, but we knew there was something different. And of course, we've come to realize it's the terpene profiles, the chemovar profiles that are different in each that we couldn't register under THC level. So back then we had an issue and a ethical issue, and one that we're still struggling under. And one that we found is that, oh shit, we're going to have a causation in America because we have, due to prohibition and alcohol prohibition, there's this fucked up mentality that the higher the number, the more fucked up you get. And that causality is something we have struggled with. And we had an organization back in the aughts called the Medical Cannabis Safety Council, the MCSC. I was part of the contaminants committee, but one thing we struggled with on the nomenclature committee was how do we address this issue, because we were able to show that. And unfortunately, Steve D'Angelo pushed out testing quicker than we could come up with the understanding to convey to the consumer that there's something happening, that the THC number does not matter. And there's something that's else happening within these flowers, these unique flowers, that are having a different effect on different people. And what we saw was people like Harborside rejecting anything that didn't have this created fictitious THC level. And then all of a sudden, Berkeley Patients Group had a whole bunch of varietals that I've been wanting to have for years come my way, that I was able to purchase, that I would have never had before, because now an imaginary line had been driven into the sand that has unfortunately become the pervasive reality since legalization has happened, because we've never been able to get behind that Pandora's box. Once it was open, it's run away from us all. And unfortunately, we're still struggling with it. And I feel a guilt mentally because we were never able to do so. And I always have an anger at Steve, because Steve knew this and we challenged him not to do this. And he went at it because of dollars, as opposed to the integrity needed so that we could convey it properly. Sorry to explain that, but I wanted to give a historical context from California, because I think it's responsible that people understand where we fucked up. We had a chance to be good stewards here and we fucked up. And so y'all can do better than us, learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's hard to let ganja be wild and be intelligent in the soil and just interact with our spirits. And then, if we had a good
the numbers and so on, and the high THC, we had something that came in at like 8 THC and 6 CBD, and everybody loved it, but we couldn't sell it because it just didn't have that high THC number. So one of the things that Frenchy and Madame Cannoli and Nikki and I and about 15 other people, we worked to create the Ganjier Council and the Ganjier program. And the purpose of that is still in the process of being, developed further and so on. But to get to a place where we could come out with a score at the end of an evaluation based on 100 points that would not be determined by THC. And that everybody's buying by one number, the THC number. And we said, well, we want to look at the appearance. We want to look at the flavor. We want to look at the aroma. And we look at all these things and we come out with a 100-point scale. So Frenchy was very much key, and Madame Cannoli as well, in developing that program. And so that's the idea. The point about this, I think, Etienne, is to educate the customer, educate the consumer, and that's on us. That's what we have to do. And we have to do it every day, all day, and we have to go through the nose, as we all well know. The secret to cannabis is always through the aroma and the nose, because in my research now, I'm going to say this, there's a great book, which I really highly recommend for all of you. It's called Nosedive. And it's this amazing book, and it talks about everything that produces aroma. Nosedive. It's like 500 pages on the aromas. And there's only like 40 pages on terpenes, but there's flavonoids and esters and phenols and volatile sulfur compounds and all these other things which are creating the aromas in cannabis. It's not only terpenes. So now all of a sudden we said, we need one thing to determine cannabis. Is it sativa? Oh, no, that doesn't work. Is it THC? Oh, no, that doesn't work. Is it dominant terpene? Oh, no, that doesn't work. Because cannabis, we always come back to the full plant. It's always about the full plant. And that's our moral compass in some ways right there. Without the whole plant, that isn't doing what it's really capable of doing. And when Madame Cannoli says, let's let the plant grow to the place where it grows wild, then we're now back into this total conversation with nature, with our bodies, with our awareness. And the plant is talking to us like it always has been talking to us. But the idea that THC is going to tell you what's going to happen is a completely erroneous assumption. It's really all about what the flavor is. And I'll throw in one more thing about aged cannabis, vintage cannabis. People don't even want anything more than 3 months old. I say we never got anything until it was 8 months old in the past, whether it came from Mexico or Thailand. Vintage cannabis is really where it's at. And I'll shut up now and let everybody else talk.
I thank you for saying that, both Swami and Etienne. Like, that is definitely kind of the new challenge, or the challenge right now for me is explaining to everybody that it's not just about these high THC percentages, and it's about the broad spectrums of beautiful cannabinoids and terpenes. Because when you have more of that, I prefer something with a higher terpene and lower THC, even different cannabinoids. And it, like, you get this, like, when you smoke something almost wild, like I remember when I was smoking Thai, stuff from Thailand, I felt like this overall well-beingness, like elated. Like, I don't get that. When I came here, I was just high. Like, I was just super high, like beyond high. And I think that due to selective breeding, we've bred towards those high THC percentages. So we really shot ourselves in the foot in a sense, and we have a lot of work to do to make up for it. And that's kind of my challenge, as what Frenchy kind of like passed down to me, is this next challenge of educating the generations under me, because that is my job now. And that is my generation's job, is to make sure that we're leaving behind. We're first getting a consensus on the language that we are using, the vocabulary that we are using. And then second, to really educate, like you guys are saying, educate everybody on the beautiful, the totality of the beauty of this plant and all the cannabinoids and all the terpenes. But so I was talking to Derek from the Gangier program. We had a lovely dinner just a couple of weeks back on Valentine's Day. And I was asking him, Frenchy, in order to get people to really understand and to get people to love it, one thing he taught me was you have to get people to smoke it. And he was like, baby, that's what we do. We smoke people out. We smoke them out all day. And that is what we did. We smoked people out, and you can just see their eyes light up. You could just see the, oh my God, just the like, yes, it's good, right? And boom, they were just experienced something they never experienced before, time and time and time again. And that is one of the most profound ways that I found that can really share it, even to people who don't smoke. They can look at it and appreciate it. But my challenge is they took that away from us. Mm. They took that opportunity away from me. So I was asking Derek, what is it going to take? Like, how do we bring that back? Like, what happened? Because we were chilling. Everyone had their rigs out. I know COVID, I get that. I totally get that. I really, really do. But I mean, what happened? All of a sudden it's legal now. Now everybody can't be smoking all around. Like, what changed? Taxes, money, it all comes down to that every single time. But Derek's point was, he said something profound that really stuck with me. And he said that it comes down to change, to the small groups, and getting a consensus amongst a lot of small groups. Then those small groups become big groups. You get the attention of your small local government. You change things in your town. You change things in your little city. And then you change things in your county. And the more counties that jump on board, then you change things in your state. And then your state changes, and then other states start to change. It's a lot of work. We have so much work ahead of us. It was a little overwhelming, to be quite honest. But that's where I'm at, is coming back to sharing this together, smoking this together. There's something about being in a circle. There's a reason why a hookah is passed in a circle. You know, there's a reason why chillum is passed in a circle. A circle is a continuous flow of energy. It's a continuous flow of communication, you know, and it brings us back together and together, looking at each other, being in that present moment together rather than our phones, you know, away. You know, smoking together is, you know, it's probably some of my closest friends in the whole world. And I want to bring that back. And that's kind of my challenge right now, is bringing that back and educating people and really sharing the beauty of, it's not just about these high THC percentages, not about it being clear. It's not about any of that. But yeah, so yeah, I welcome ideas. You know, how are we going to bring the smoking back, guys? Please.
Belle, that's everything you're saying is so amazing, and it's so true. I mean, what you know, as a farmer, and first of all, I'd just like to, you know, acknowledge that you and Frenchy and Lena and we hear so much about, you know, it all comes from the farmer, and I just want to take that back and say that it really all does come from the land. And that's what I see. It's like, it's the soil, it's the fungus, it's the microbes, it's everything. It's the place, the environment. Cause honestly, I like to have humility about that, because it's like, as farmers, if we're doing what we should be doing, we're just really providing the space for the plant to interact with the place and the soil. So, but to what you're saying, this is what legalization has done, is completely disassociated the consumers with that and with that connection. And it's just really bad policy. And there's so much work to do. And this is something that Origins Council has really taken a lead on and working to, you know, there's, you know, we are not able to smoke people out. Like, we're not able to we're literally prohibited from bringing people to our farms and smoking them out. Like, that is against the law, which is just absolutely absurd. And that is the big work that we need to do, is change the way that this legalization is, so that we can have smoking circles and have events that, you know, there's talk about farmers market events. But so far, what we have in California, there is no such thing as a real farmers market. It's like, it's a fake farmers market, because a farmers market is where you as the farmer have your product on the table and you can share it. And just like at a actual vegetable farmers market, you can cut up an apple and give somebody a slice, and then they're right there talking to you, and it's coming from your hand, and you can tell them about where you grew it and what was special about that place. And that is lacking right now. And it's not lacking because I don't believe that it's lacking because somebody forgot to put that in regulation. This is like the way of the corporate world, is to intentionally remove the consumer from that connection. And it's daunting and overwhelming, but we have to keep the faith and educate and you know, Dragonfly, with the work you're doing around the world, that's part of the education. There's so much more work to do. And so I'm all ideas too, but you know, it's a bummer that as farmers, I find that we have to become so engaged in policy and this stuff that really is not where we want to be doing. But if we don't, nobody else is doing it. And it's just going to, you know, this problem will continue to compound. And I see in the chat, you know, we've got conversations happening internationally and with legalization, and there's a part of me that's so scared of US federal legalization, because it's like they're just going to keep fucking it up worse. And we have to stay super engaged, and that is hard work for a bunch of farmers and hash makers, but we're the only ones really preaching this. And so, you know, keep it up, everybody.
It feels to me sometimes like this is like greater than just us as a community. This is something that's so deep because our shared connection to the plant goes back to the point before we were even a thought in consciousness, you know, that having humans develop with an endocannabinoid system with a plant that existed 26 million years before we did, you know, there's something that just, it would be wrong to not fight for this and for this understanding that it, you know, that the plant is encouraging community and human connection and, I don't know, conversation, because without that, you know, the way forward, this kind of militaristic model that we find ourselves in is not viable. And we see that it's not taking us to a place of overall well-beingness, like Belle mentioned before. That was one of Frenchy's favorite words of describing his experience of cannabis. If it wasn't making you feel overall in a really good place, then something was not right with it. I think also the hookah, that multi-hose hookah, we were in Denver once at an event and I was standing next to a guy. It was the first time he had ever smoked the hookah. And he turned to me and he said, this is like sharing a lung with 4 people, you know, that he was smoking with at the same time. That it was just such a profound experience for him. And maybe that's more of what we need, is those opportunities to get together and pass the smoke and have conversations like we're doing now, because that grounds us in community. And I just think it's an important path forward. That's part of why I advocate for you all so much.
Thank you so much. You know, we all of us are the entourage effect in human form that are here to heal humanity. So it's interesting how that biodiverse effect just continues to show itself in our soils, in humanity, in the medicine. And honestly, you know, that's part of our big mission out here, that we're using Frenchy and this spirit to embody change. We have Alice here from Brazil. Go ahead and say something.
I love you all so much. Much love to all of you and to Frenchy, which was the key to bring education to all of us. I think if there's something that sums up his work, it's the way he educated people and the way he multiplied education and the way he never held information behind, and he just wanted to share so we could multiply and we could all smoke more, know more, and actually be a real part of the hash history. It's not only about the past, right? It's what we're doing right now. So there is time to change, and if we all stay together and keep together, like Frenchy always said for us to be, and brought everyone together, right? He brought all these amazing people. Belle, I love you so much. Frenchy brought me you. Lena, Kim, like I love you all so much, and thank you.
And another thing I just wanted to say is that we're all talking about, you know, continuing to push forward legalization in a way that helps the farmer, helps the community. And one way that really helps cannabis is to continue to push forward home growers. That all of the education that we're doing is that cannabis is in every single backyard. That apartment complexes have small little cannabis gardens that have some tomatoes and some zucchini that's growing there. We're seeing that here. There's community gardens that people are utilizing. And if we continue to bring that education forward through federal legalization, we know that it's going to get fucked up for the farmers, for even the consumers, but we're going to be able to have the capability to consume our own flower, to consume our own concentrates. And when we are doing that and we are pushing the education forward, then people are truly being healed by getting down in the soil. They're breathing the soil microbes. That right there is going to help them create better decisions for the plant. And then the plant that they're going to grow is going to be in communication with that person the entire time. And there's DNA that's swapped, there's energy, there's frequency that's swapped. And we really believe that the best medicine in the world is the one that you grow yourself.
And also, you know, making your own nutrients and making your own soil and really using your environment is the ultimate way to create terroir and Appalachia. So, and Frenchy really agreed with that, that just having a pot and soil that's bought at the store and using vital nutrients, it will never give you any type of unique flavor or terroir or anything for your area. So really, a big part of the mission that we are all on is teaching people how to make their own nutrients, teaching people how to make their own soil, you know, teaching home growers how to make their own sift. You know, this is the way we engage with our power and how we use cannabis as the opportunity that it is. Cannabis could be treated industrial and more like a prisoner, or it could be treated more freely like a gift to us. We could make clothes and oil and food and medicine. So I just want to encourage us to continue that nature aspect of creating the cannabis. And as legalization, it can be done indoors in a way where there's regenerative style techniques used. And, you know, that's important. It's best outdoors, but if you're doing it indoors, you can still do it by using local environmental inputs for your farm. Yes.
I'd like to jump in for a minute. I haven't been saying much. I've been listening a lot, and I really appreciate the beauty of this conversation. And one of the reasons that I feel compelled to speak is that we meet because of Frenchy and his work, and Madam Cannoli, the way you have gotten this film to the attention of so many folk is great. But it struck me to say that we have the Dragonfly Earth Medicine family representing ideal, if in my opinion, practices towards creating the best versions of the cannabis plant in terms of the health and vitality of the plant itself. And as a medicine maker and other medicine makers know, you get the best medicine, whatever medicine means to you, from the cannabis plant, from the best farms. The best cultivation practices produce the best medicine. And you can make medicine from mediocre product, but it's not going to be what it could have been. And the stewardship to the earth. There's a respect for the earth and the importance of the fungal kingdoms and the diversity that comes in a regenerative garden. And so deep respect for that, if you will, for the roots of this conversation. And meantime, it is Hash Church, so we are all about concentrating the results of that work. And you know, mad respect for the folk who, I mean, I'm sitting in the office spaces of a local hash maker doing dry sift, little commercial quick, Floracy, long time. Floracy's been doing the work in with awareness of CBD oil and the needs of patients long enough that Harry, the owner and friend, at one time created and owned the domain name cbdoil.com, which was a while ago, and he sold it years ago. But yeah, that's how long he's been doing it, as long as I have probably. And he's a longtime resident up here. And meantime, my friend Sweetleaf Joe dropped by. But I want to finish through the cycle here of my thoughts on this conversation today, because not only do we have beautiful cultivators, respect to the planet, best product made for the manufacturers to turn that into a product that's suitable for use, and people like Dr. Mark keeping track of what's going on with the manufacturing processes and ensuring best results, again, for the end user. And it's on us at some point to educate the public about why THC numbers are such a terrible way of finding best product for your own needs. And the last part of my mad ramble, I'm almost done, I promise, is there's also this component represented on the professional level by Etienne and his work at Berkeley Patients Group. I thought I saw that Alex Dixon might join our group today, but I've run into him. He's on the board with Valerie Corral down in Santa Cruz. And again, Sweetleaf Joe and myself have for years been about making sure those who really need cannabis, if you will, the very end of the supply chain being discussed here today, and the beauty of this, we have the bases covered, if you will. And I think the one hole in it is we really do have to help the consumer, particularly folks who are new to cannabis, to understand that cannabis has so many different properties, so many different possibilities, and a lot of it is based on what does your body need. Anyway, deep gratitude for the gathering today, and deep gratitude, Frenchy, for calling upon us to respect the generations going back, you know, as been said, thousands of years. And not all of the changes that have happened have been to the best of the cannabis plant itself. At one point, I thought that our focus on THC had created an imbalanced, overloaded branch of the possibilities that the cannabis plant represents. And I'm sure if Skunkman Sam had been able to join us today, he would call me out of bullshit on that. And I will stop there. And I would like to give Joe a chance to say hello. And I do have to observe that it has snowed a couple of times down here in town. And I live 800 feet in elevation higher than where I'm sitting at the moment. So in respect to my well-being and my wife's very strong, respectful, love-filled request, I might have to step out early. Joe.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sweetleaf Joe, the founder and director of the Sweetleaf Collective. We help low-income, terminally ill patients, veterans, people of color, the LGBTQ community, seniors. We basically all underserved demographics. We help access free medical cannabis. And we've been doing this since 1996. We're California's oldest cannabis brand. And yeah, just wanted to come and check this out. Wade invited me today. And I like also what Wade was talking about too. You know, it is important to protect small business and the cultivators and all of the strains. But the other part of the picture is protecting access to those who can't afford it. Because as we saw in 2019, when compassion programs, health equity, and cannabis nonprofits shut down in California due to taxation, people died. So there's a human cost when people do not have access to free medical cannabis and they cannot afford it. So that's my little spiel.
And I'll just lean in and say, I first ran into Joe's work back in the 90s. I was very just beginning my professional work with cannabis myself, but I was doing volunteer work for a group called the Shanti Project, who was all about helping people dying of AIDS. That's how I first met Joe. And you can probably tell I had a number of friends who were doing the same, who were dying from AIDS. And my thing was providing emotional support and caregiving.
I want
to reveal people.
It's important work.
Thank you for being also the leaders. I mean, you're 3 years older than BPG and we're 23 years old and people are like, oh, that's crazy for a dispensary. And it's like, well, we learned from the collectives and you were one of the original collectives. So I want to give a shout out to not only one of the oldest, but one of the most enduring. And we continue to support and we'll always continue to support those because I'm a patient myself as a veteran and that saved my life. And unfortunately, a lot of these dispensary owners nowadays aren't patients and don't understand the reality or the responsibility that we carry to do things right and responsible, which is why we've worked with people who are doing it right, who are doing it with integrity, like Frenchy, like Joe, like Wade, and others who are there to not only do it right, but to take the time to educate you on why it should be done right. And not only to explain it by living as an example day in and day out, waking up tomorrow and getting up and doing it again, planning today for tomorrow so that that hash or that cannabis is ready, so that that patient, because that patient is coming tomorrow for that cannabis, expecting that cannabis for them. And Joe's right. People died, unfortunately, and we had to fight within our own state to have compassionate giving. And we're going to have to fight again and band together again here in another year to go lobby to change the law again so that we can continue to give free cannabis to those that are in need. And this is something the other states have to realize. And I hope the audit that's about to happen in Canada, since you're coming up on your 5 years there, that, you know, compassionate giving and medical cannabis can stand the test of time. Because it's now legal since December of 2020. And I'm working with the group. The Veterans Action Council will actually be in Vienna. We have representatives, and we have another side event at the 66 C&D where we're working toward legalization for adult use by 2029. And we believe that's a possibility so that no one will be executed around the world for cannabis ever again. So we're at the local, state, federal, and we're at the international level. And when the galactic level decides to call us up, we'll be there and ready to push cannabis into the galaxy further. So again, humbled and honored to be here. And thank you, Wade. And thank you, of course, Sweet Leaf Joe, for your decades of leadership and humble ability to navigate the very difficult waters that it takes to get the cannabis, to get it to people for free, and the logistics that go in between. Nothing but mad respect and love.
You just made me realize, ATN, there is a milestone to be had. Who will be the first person to smoke hash in space?
Who will be that person, and who will grow that hash?
Yeah. Well, Kimberly, as you know, sometimes they bring me in on Hash Church to break down all the science that happens in hash and in cannabis. And yeah, this unfortunate thing about needing to know the percent THC in a plant material that produces all this other stuff. And it produces THC, produces THCA actually, right? So when we smoke it, it converts it to THC. And the difficulty about taking a botanical and quantifying the amount of an active ingredient on there is that the botanical itself has a lot of moisture content. And in order to provide an accurate assessment, the standardization is usually to report the amount of a chemical substance in a plant based on dried weight, based on the dry weight of the plant material. So it's been completely dried. So the challenge at the laboratories is, well, the cannabis they're getting is not dried, right? So they have to dry it. So let's talk about that for a second. So when you dry something, you're going to put it in a vacuum and you're going to heat it up. Well, gee, what happens to cannabis when you heat it up, right? There's the volatilization of the terpenes, and as well as the loss of the water. I mean, it's even known now that some of these labs, because they're trying to crank through as many samples as they can, one of the knobs that they can turn here is they turn up the temperature, right? That way they can process more samples, because the more samples the lab processes, the more money the lab makes, right? So when they turn up the heat, guess what happens to the cannabinoid acids? They decarboxylate, turn into THC, right? So now what you're putting into the HPLC to measure the cannabinoid content on is not only been dried, but it's been deterpened, it's been decarboxylated, and it's difficult when each individual lab has a different SOP that's doing this process, right? So I think the difficulty has always been the reproducibility between labs, and there's lawsuits in states where producers, there's this THC inflation to be able to get their stuff into the market. And ATN knows when there's wholesale exchanges, you know, what's the metric? Well, it looks good. It looks really good. Well, hell, I was talking to a guy who was in Washington Square Park, bought something in New York City that thought it looked good, didn't get him high at all. It's probably just sprayed hemp, right? He's buying it from a weed truck where there used to be food trucks. Now there's weed trucks in New York City. It's just, it's a metric that's not the right thing. And what we were talking about this, Marcus, with Jeremy and that group that came out with that paper, the Nose Knows, which I think is one of the most fascinating papers that I've read in the open cannabis literature, which again puts the emphasis not on THC content and not typically on like terpene content. Like you can't look at one terpene as one instrument in this orchestra, right? You're listening to this orchestra play this beautiful music, and you can't just isolate one terpene and say, wow, it's caryophyllene. I need a caryophyllene dominant or limonene. It's the way that they play this music together, and these are just the terpenes that we can see are the ones that are analyzed in the laboratory. There's a whole host of terpenes, and as was graciously pointed out earlier, non-terpenoid molecules like the sulfur-containing molecules, Marcus, right? We had these discussions about these new volatile. As it turns out, those thiols are actually sulfur compounds, but they're prenolated. They're prenolated sulfides, so they are derived from isoprene. So essentially, they are thiolated or sulfur-containing compounds, but their starting material, kid you not, is isoprene, which is the same starting material that all terpenes are derived from. So I'll stop by just saying it is so difficult in this age of prohibition ending and commercial production happening without having some sort of metric. And until we figure out this issue about how to standardize, there are standardization methods, but when you take a wet cannabis flower, so everything that we smoke in our pipe or everything that we would make hash out of, it's not on a dried weight basis, right? And when you convert that sample in a laboratory to a dried weight basis, you've just not only lost all your water, you've lost all your terpenes, you've lost all your aldehydes, thiols, all these other compounds that we don't know about, and you've decarboxylated your terpenes. So what you're putting into your HPL machine is no representation of what you're buying.
Mark, let me butt in
hey,
for one.
There's our friend Skunk.
Yes,
Sam. Hey, Sam,
I just wanted to mention that you can bring your moisture level down to practically zero with the desiccator. So without heat, no heat at all. And
right.
That preserves the majority of the terpenes.
Right. The problem with that, though, Sam, is, and you bring up a really great point, there's a couple of presentations out on the internet by a researcher named Ginny Curry, Jinicurry, and she's an analytical chemist who works at a testing lab who's given a couple presentations on this recently. And you're absolutely right, Sam. The problem is that if you're going to do desiccation, it takes overnight. Overnight, that lab is not making enough money to run those samples.
Right. Maybe if you had 100 desiccators, because we used a glass one that held about, I don't know, maybe 50 grams maximum.
Right.
And it took at least one day to, because we were storing it at maybe, I don't know, 8-10% moisture. So you still had to get rid of the rest of it.
Right. But it's fair to say, though, Sam, right, that if you're desiccating and you're removing some of the moisture, you are probably going to be losing some of your most volatile compounds in that loss. That's one thing. And
It depends if the room temperature is. If the room temperature is fairly low, then no, that doesn't happen. But also I wanted to mention that the thiols, I'm doing some tests now with some pure THCA, and I'll be using some of the thiols that were given to me to test to see if they can either modulate or potentiate THC the way some of the terpenes can.
I'm sure they will.
I'm not sure, but I'm curious as hell.
Well, I love like the garlic essence of like some of the hazes, and I think that there is something to that beyond the gas essence, you know. But those guys actually have developed kind of like the gas scale based on some of the volatile terpenes that they've, or volatile sulfides that they've identified.
Yeah, and the one that I got is the one that they suspect is the most likely, and also that is the most potent. I mean, you're talking about the tiniest amount on a pinhead. Right. It can stink up the whole room for like days.
And how is your wife loving that, Sam?
Well, I haven't taken it out yet. When I do it, I'll do it out on my balcony.
Good call, good call. Well, welcome to our celebration of Frenchy, Skunk Man Sam. It's been too long.
Excuse me, I was just meditating on my Puffco, and I spaced it out the time.
On your Puffco or your Magna Carta?
Well, I'm not using my Magna Carta yet. I don't have it in my hands. So I'm using the Puffco, and I'll try the Magna Carta as soon as I get one. Is somebody talking or?
No, so we were telling stories about Frenchy. Do you have any stories about Frenchy, Sam?
Well, Frenchy and I had a very, very close relationship. He wanted to use more science to prove, you know, the various theories and feelings he had about hashish. And I encouraged him in every way that I could to do so. I think right when at the time he died, he had done some recent work where they were taking hashish and then pressing it, rubbing it, and storing it for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months to see what happens to the cannabinoid and terpene profiles. Because he had a lot of feelings that new terpenes were created, or there was something going on, and I wasn't so sure about the new terpenes, but I said the way to answer the questions is with science, and so it took him a couple of years to get it together, but he was doing it right when unfortunately he left us.
Yeah, that was studies that he did with High North Labs in Toronto. And it was just the initial study to kind of establish the prototype and figure out the protocol, how to do the longer term study. And so that's something that I hope to fund in the future as well, because Frenchy had the experience, one of the things they would do when they would go back year after year in the mountains with the Italians that were up there with him, because it was just a couple French people and some Italians back in the day that really went to the areas that he was at. Before they would go down to Goa for the winter, when the snow would hit up there, they would leave a little bit of the charas that they had made that year. They would bury it underground so that they would have something to smoke as soon as they came back up. And they would have these little get-togethers. And over the years, once he had been doing this for 5-6 years, there were Italians that had been there 10 years before him. He started smoking hash that was 8, 10, 12 years old and really had this, kind of amazing experience of how good this aged charas, I should say it was charas was. And that kind of planted the seed in his brain of, there was this whole area in the commercial marketplace that was still open for development around aging hashish. And I think being French and having the experience, you know, the culture there with aging wine or certain alcohols that are aged and develop a different profile and expression with the passage of time. That was something that was really interesting to him. And of course, he loved talking with all of you who have the scientific background, because he really felt that the ancestors, they intuitively knew something because of what they had learned generation after generation. You know, working with people, he would ask them in those traditional cultures, why do we do this thing? And the answer was always, because it makes a better hashish, because it makes a better charas. They couldn't explain the science, but they knew what they knew because they had paid attention to the plant, and their parents or their grandparents had passed the knowledge on. And he really wanted to be able to validate their understanding through modern science, and yeah, leave that with the world.
Well, I'm in favor of cannabis science. That has been my life, and I encouraged him in every way I could to. We both had a deep love of hashish. I had very slight different feelings. For example, I think Marcus also likes this, prefer unpressed dry sifted resin. I don't know, there's just something about it that I like a little bit better. But for any sort of long time preservation, I would strongly recommend pressing it like everybody else around me does.
I'd just like to say too, you know, the other thing that Frenchy used to comment on a lot was how hard we are, like one person's preference to another sometimes within the concentrate community. And he used to say, you know, it's so funny, you never hear a tequila drinker trashing a cognac consumer for their choice. And he would be the first person to say, you know, bless whatever you want to consume. If you should consume what makes you feel good and what meets your needs and your preferences, but that there shouldn't be this judgment against another person because they want, you know, so in the case of Frenchy, he loved the traditional pressed and even aged hashish. He wasn't going to say that he didn't think you should not smoke your unpressed loose live resin by any means, you know? So I just would like to throw out, I think we need more tolerance. That would be
what I was talking about actually wasn't live resin. It's dried plants. It's been dried for 2 weeks. It's been cured for a couple of months. Then you dry sift it, and then you smoke it as unpressed pollen. It's a very slight difference, but it's different. And I agree, different smokes for different folks. Whatever turns your crank is what's good for you. As long as it's clean and safe for the consumer, well, you let 1,000 ideas bloom.
Just in the spirit of aged resin, we have a traditional ball here that Mean Gene gave to us, and it's 9 years old. It's got to be, I don't know, maybe if Mean Gene's out there, he can say exactly how old it was, but it's probably over 9 years now. We did add some other stuff in it there, but it's very beautiful. We've been smoking snakes out of it into the joints right now. And we all really love smoking hashish like this.
Is it dry sifted or is it water hash, dry sifted? Do you know?
Water hash.
Water hash, yeah.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice if you could have analyzed it 9 years ago and every 5 years or so along this trail. That I'm very curious about that.
We would like to do that as well. We have some pre-COVID hash also from 2019 Mendo Breath, which is kind of fun. And, you know, we can give that a test. And if you have some, we can talk to High North because we work with High North out in Ontario from our British Columbian farm. And maybe we can do some of that testing. That would be fun to do. We're going to keep it, you know, in a cool, dry place in a good container and all that. But
I know when I did storage studies in my laboratory years ago when I was busy working, I found that cannabis, after 1 or 2 years of just storage in boxes in the dark and cool room, lost the majority of its terpenes, but its cannabinoid profile was still identical. Whereas dry sifted resin, also, it loses the majority of its terpenes, and it'll start to turn from like a golden sand colored to a almost reddish color just from the oxidation of the THC.
Yeah, I've got some red hash right here, actually, that I can show it real quick here. Get to the different view. This piece of hash is 13 years old. That's in here.
Yeah, the only other person that I know would do that is Kenny from Trichome Technology. He would whip out, I mean, literally 50, 20 different varieties, 2 years old, just to show you the difference in the flavors, etc. And there's definitely yeah, it's definitely for sure. It's definitely couch lock kind of hash for sure, but definitely you could tell the terpenes, all that were definitely gone. You really had to get in there to get any type of flavor, and the flavor really didn't come out until it was actually lit. So not many people I know in America will actually age hash, but not many people I know would do that many hashes that many years that he likes to do. But to also, like Sam, what he was doing, to see the differences and what the changes that transpire happen. But yeah, it's couch lock.
Yeah, you can only cure for so long. Although, you know, this particular hash, which is, you know, almost 14 years old now, it still has an incredible flavor. It has almost no smell. It smells almost stale, which is like what I've seen from resin that's in the, you know, almost 15 to 20 year. Sam used to have some really old resin, as did one of his partners. He wasn't necessarily curing it as much as preserving it, but it was still very old.
What I was doing, that was at minus 30 centigrade, and it was, I sucked all the oxygen away from it for long-term storage, and then it kept, and the terpenes were kept. Everything was really, really nice. But if you're not super careful about your long-term storage of dry sifted resin, for example, then yeah, it definitely changes. And
there is a point of diminishing returns.
Did Frenchy freeze his, once he'd had a piece pressed and he wanted to keep it for a few years, would he freeze it or store it at room temperature?
He would store it in the basement, almost like a wine cellar, because he was interested in kind of the transformation, what was happening with the terpenes and whatnot over time. But in the study that he wanted to do, like you have done, he wanted to have some that was stored at very, very cold conditions. And then, you know, kind of like 3 different temperatures.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what you need to do for science.
So Lebanon was notorious for producing red hashish, but to my knowledge, they're no longer producing red hash today, but I believe their drying methodologies are the same. So what's different now?
It had soil. I was able to get Lebanese when I was in Saudi Arabia for the Gulf War. Oops. And I was able to trade with Saud, and I got it, and it was a little dry and brittly. It was compact. It would come in long, thin slats, and yeah, it was just red, and it didn't have a right flavor to it. But from what I'm told, that's just from the dust of the soil.
Yeah, absolutely red. soil makes Lebanese red. It may not be the only reason, but it's the majority of the reason.
Iron silicate.
I think part of the problem with the Lebanon is that it's just become like extremely punishable there. And we were just talking with a cannabis man from Lebanon in a coffee shop in Amsterdam, and they come out here because anything they do there is it's just really hard to get around in Lebanon right now, especially after the bomb and that whole thing. And even this is Mick back here from GWA, and he's saying that a lot of the traditional
Nice to meet you guys.
a lot of the traditional hash that's going around here, 95% of it's coming from Morocco at this moment.
Yeah, that's what's flooding Europe is Morocco. And most of it is about the best you can get is 00, which they take 100 kilos of dried plants and they make at least 2 kilos of collected resin from it.
And I know because I tried that 00 that you gave to Ed at Positronics back in '96. And that was the first and only time I ever had that. And when you snapped it, you used a knife and it clicked just like glass. I remember that sound and I remember smoking that. And that was lights out, some of the most amazing hash I've ever had.
That's because it was anywhere from 70% resin heads to higher. I don't remember that particular piece, but you know, when I made it for gifts, it was usually, you know, 70-80% resin heads.
I remember laying on, and I went around and did all the different hash places in Amsterdam. And I just remember laying on the bench there at Positronics, staring at the sky. And when I left, I had just 1 little gram left and I ate it. And I remember landing in New York and trying to walk toward the customs guy, and everything was in slow motion. My wife said I was fine, but I was fucking lit out of my fucking mind. And I don't know how I made it through there, but you know, the universe was kind to me. And yeah, it was, still without a doubt one of those memories that stick in my mind, and that's due to you and due to real 00.
We had conversations with Frenchy about going on a tour in Kimberly and in Morocco and visiting farms, because he was saying that a lot of the farms there were just not growing in a way that he thinks is best for the resin, and that he felt like the local cultivation could be, you know, done better for their local cultivation. And you know, they use the beat and sift technique there, and there's also like interesting to see how the beat and sift technique that's come into like bags here in Barcelona. You can get beat and sift bags, you know, and make hash the Moroccan way, and it's less heads, but you can still make really beautiful, you know, kind of patties or big pressed hash, which is beautiful to smoke in ganja, doobies, or tobacco, which a lot of people do here. But the beat and sift technique is interesting, and I don't see it as much at home because the pure resin heads are better for dabbing, and it doesn't make sense to have a 70% heads. But the terpene ratio on it is in a way a lot higher for some.
And also, I was thinking, Josh just mentioned Morocco. That was definitely something that Frenchy and we were dreaming about, because he would talk about Morocco and sort of get stars in his eyes and say, oh, we got to teach him biomass. We've got to go back and reteach him. There are people up in the hills who are still doing it properly. And that passion to bring, you know, the old world practices and the old world techniques, even to the people who were there still, even the people who have lost it. He was still out there teaching them their old ways or reintroducing their old ways, and just really thinking about that and dreaming about that, and how that's one of my greatest dreams is to get out to Morocco because he just talked about it so much. I feel like I have to go.
Well,
Be honest.
I want to give a shout out to Marcus because it was actually Marcus and having bubble bags, which brought an ideal to people that the different size screens mattered. I mean, has literally uplifted the quality of hash. Now, granted, there's different people who have knocked off what Marcus has done, but regardless, that type of understanding that different types of flowers produce different size, micron size, flowering tops. I mean, it mattered and it still matters. And I just want to thank Bubble Man and the others who use that technology that has risen the quality all the way around, because I know Frenchy used those bags and was very successful in helping him get at the quality. So the technology standards have also helped raise the standards outright. So I just want to bring back to thank Marcus for his ingenious time and place in the hash history to move things forward, because we wouldn't be where we are if that understanding in itself wasn't out there for people, and it really matters.
But kind of piggybacking on what you just said about going to Morocco, I think we kind of owe them a debt because we brought these cultivars that really were not suited to the local terroir there. And now they're needing to use more water. They're having problems with pests. They're having all kinds of issues that they didn't have in the past. And I think, we do owe them some help in seeing that maybe they should let things go back, or use cultivars that are more adapted to the environment there and not try to change the environment. It's kind of like I'm seeing pictures of people doing ice water sieving in the Himalayas, where in traditional charas cultures, in environments that are very humid and not suited to drying the material after it's been washed. And so I just would love for people in these traditional environments to understand that just because we're doing something in Northern California in one way that suits the climate, the environment that we have here, that it's not necessarily going to be the perfect fit, and that maybe what they have traditionally is what the world needs and not for them to replicate what we have. I don't think we've always done the best service by trying to replace the original genetics that were in these producing countries.
Agreed. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah. Talk about Morocco, what we talked about now.
Yeah.
I just think it's beautiful to see traditions and technology get together. We all here, and Frenchy and all of you honor so much the tradition, but we can't deny where we live in, right? We live in the world where we live in the present. And I think it's beautiful. Like Belle's work is completely uniting also tradition and technology, honoring the tradition and honoring the different colors of hash, the different amounts of plant matter that can be in that hash. And I went to Morocco 8 years ago, and then now. And then in just a brief 8 years, I could see the big change in traditions to technology. I know that people here in Europe probably know way more about me than that, but for the first time, people in the street were trying to sell things to me, talking about the micron. Before, 8 years ago, they were not talking about 1 micron that was made. They were showing me some strawberry banana bars, and a bunch of them come here to Barcelona too, but they were showing all these different kinds of genetics. So of course it's beautiful for us to think of a world when it's untouched, but globalization somehow happened, and that's what we have nowadays. I just hope we keep honoring tradition, that we just don't develop just technology and forget about the tradition. So
both directions are important. Both directions are important to keep our roots, but to grow up towards the sun. It's important to have them both. And I'll tell you, there was several years where I would take we made some incredible water hash with Dr. Atomic. He brought some of his flowers over to my house, and we made he brought like 3 or 4 pounds of flour when flour was worth $3,000 a pound, and said, whatever, let's just make some nice bubble hash with it. And I took that bubble hash to Bob Marley's birthday bash in Kingston, Jamaica that year. And he took it to Nepal for the Shiva Ratri. And everyone we shared it with and everywhere we shared it with, he actually put it on a plate at a celebration of hash at Shiva Ratri in Kathmandu. And it was the people's choice. It was the Baba's choice of hash for that evening. It was the one that no one could get over. No one could believe. Of course, they weren't, dissing their traditional hashes, but they had just never seen anything like this. This was 6-star full melt bubble, and they were smoking it in chillums in a cave in Kathmandu. And it was just, and very similar experience happened in Jamaica. I smoked it with a variety of Rastafari from different tribes. And I also not only smoked it, but we put it in the steam pipe as well. So it was vaporized, and it was, it's neat to see. We couldn't have what we have today without those traditions. So it's kind of like by creating something new, you're really paying homage to the tradition, because you couldn't, you're a step in a ladder, and you couldn't take that step without all the steps before you. And if there's no steps after you, well, then the ladder ends. And that's sort of a sad thought as well. So
I think one of our most important steps recently has been, well, by recently, I mean last few decades, has been using simsamia to produce water hash or dry sift. And yeah, because simsamine resin is fundamentally got more of what we want. And cleanliness is next to godliness.
Mm.
That's all, folks.
In the case of Morocco, you're definitely seeing runts and cushments and things coming over from Morocco a lot, which is kind of a bummer, but also maybe cool for them because they love ganja too, and they're just exploring these new flavors as well. There are definitely some regions where I would imagine that the Moroccans still it's a little bit more land race, but we have been talking about going on a trip this fall to explore during the hash times, to see what's going on out there.
You will not find pure land races in Morocco because all of the crops are seeded, and they're seeded by the new multi-poly hybrid imports. So the pollen is everywhere, and there are no pure land races. Anybody who says so, they just don't really understand.
I totally agree, and even this cone club back here knows about higher in the mountains, maybe is the best place that you're going to find anything that resembles.
Pollen has no trouble getting higher in the mountains.
Still,
zero problem. First time I visited Morocco was 1971, and they had only been growing keef, because they were growing keef, until about 65. That's when they first grew keef, and they ground it up and made hash out of it. Before that, they were not making hash in Morocco. Hashish is new to Morocco. Keef smoking is hundreds of years old.
And was it true that it was a Nigerian guy who brought Lebanese screening techniques to Morocco?
That's the story that was told me and Rob from the family who was the big wazoos in the Rif. They had been growing more and longer than anybody else. And we talked to the grandfather, and he told us it was an Algerian black guy.
Mustafa.
Who brought the method from Algeria. And I don't know if Algeria was ever a big producer. Maybe he had seen it in Lebanon. That I don't know. But these people were serious. When we were introduced to the younger parts of their family, and they were helping us do some work there. And but before they would work with us, they wanted the grandfather to meet us, and we had to meet him, and we had to be approved. And when we walked into their home, above the front door, there was a big giant male plant wrapped into a circle and hung there like a Christmas wreath. It was, yep, that's the other way to do it, is with your hands.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Sam.
No problem.
Was that charas in the making?
Absolutely. Milana Valley.
Our friend Kush Kirk in Southern Oregon has dedicated a few plants completely to making charas the last couple of years, and it's been really awesome, and it's a fun project, and he's inspired other people to do that. So I think that's a really
have you ever
good.
checked out what the yield is, or does he do it from living plants, or does he do it from dry plants?
From living, just like normal, like he does it from living plants. And you can, ask him exactly what his yields are. They're really good. They're way better than the other, doing it in the Himalayas or whatnot, because the plants have larger crystals, bigger crystals and stuff. But it's really beautiful hash, and it's traditional, and it's charas, so it's different.
That's why we do. Hey, this is Wade. I got to jump in here for a second. Again, I want to thank the folks that made it possible for me to come into town. Floracy. This is some Tropicana cookies. And Sam, you might approve. This was harvested from this summer's outdoor, done right, regenerative, blah, 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 all tiger. It's Sky Tiger Ranch here in Nevada County. Anyway, it's dry sift, done cold, lightly pressed to make a nice little packet. Don't know if you can see what's going on there. It's more than a gram, but it's really lovely smoke. I specifically asked for one of these because it works beautifully with my hands.
Does it have the THC?
No heated, no solvent, no water, no nothing but screening and light press.
Wade, does it have the THC level? I'm curious.
Yeah. How about it? What it's got here, you said this is 2 grams?
2 grams, yeah.
Yeah. So it's 950%. 2 grams. Yeah, 980 milligrams in a 2 gram little puck with a little gold leaf lightning strike on it.
So that's like 47 or 48%?
Yeah, just shy of 50%, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah. And meantime, available in a dispensary in California. I won't get into price, but yeah.
When I made dry sift that was 99.9% resin heads, about the highest I ever got was in the low 80s% THC. And that was from skunk number 1, cleaned up absolutely clean. And it was almost like smoking honey oil. It was amazing.
But didn't you prefer your 60%, Sam? Because I think that was
it's easier to smoke, because when you smoke the really, really, really clean stuff, it wants to drip through screens. I mean, it depends how you smoked it. If you smoke it in a vaporizer or a glass pipe, it's not a problem. But if I used to smoke an Aurora bong with 3 really, really fine screens on it. I think you might remember. And if I put the 99.9% on it and I put heat to it, it would leak right through all 3 screens. So
and Sam, the guy who, pardon the interruption, the fellow who handed me this at my request points out that in California, to have it on the shelf 1,000 milligrams in any package. That's why it's 980.
Oh, okay, but then what you could have done was, I'm not saying you should, but you could have made 1 gram on the package, and then 1,000 milligrams, it would have been pure THC. I'm not saying that's better because I don't find it is. I think you need the full terpenes and everything, flavor, everything else, because that's way better than pure crystal THCA.
I agree. And part of why I needed to jump in is it has started snowing here. And there was patches of blue sky, but yeah, it started snowing again. And like I said, the difference in elevation between the town where there's electricity and internet and where I live is 800 feet. We live at about 1,000 meters elevation, 3,270 feet is what the title says on the farm. But yeah, there was 5 feet on the ground Wednesday, and today it's down to about 3 feet. But we're supposed to get that much more again this week, and I promised I would leave in time to get home safely. So I'm going to sign off. I have such deep respect, not only for this group, but Frenchy and Madam Cannoli. I do look forward to seeing the film at some point soon. My health has not allowed me to travel very much in the last year or two since the film came out, but I'm healing, like many of us. It's a process, life. And so thank you all for showing up today. And I feel like I didn't know every one of you so well, and some of you better than others. But again, deep respect, much love, and take care of yourselves. You're the only one you got. Bye.
Thanks, Wade. Much
Thank
love,
you,
brother.
Marcus. Yeah.
Thanks,
Look
Wade.
forward to the next time, maybe. Ciao for now.
Yeah. Ciao, Sweet Leaf.
I appreciated that little conversation about the dry sift because it reminded me that, you know, this was some of the last conversations that I was having with Frenchy was about, you know, because he really wanted to have that connection to the farm and try to figure out how to do that also commercially and to be able to put something into the California market. And he was talking about, you know, the regulations do allow for what they call keef, and we cannot do ice water hash on the farm without, you know, a whole rigmarole of licensing, even though it's non-volatile. And so he was talking about, you know, working on kind of, and Lena and Belle probably could fill in the gaps on where he was going with his thought, but he was like, wow, we should be doing dry sifting on the farm, and then we can press it and we can put out a packaged product that would actually, you know, come straight from the farm and have never had to, you know, be frozen or travel through the distribution chain. And so it's neat to see that somebody, I don't know if that was made in a facility or on site by a farm, but that's cool to see. I've not seen that in the commercial market before.
I think that they should bring it back to dry sift. Sorry, Sam, I didn't mean to cut you off, but water is very difficult. Just, you know, like kind of the whole fluid dynamic element behind it. It's expensive to chill water. Pumps are expensive to have water. Honestly, dry sift is a lot more conducive, really, environmentally, if you really think about it.
The main thing about dry sift is the yield is quite low. You just get, you know, 1, 2, 3% yield from the best of the best of the best per kilo. You know, that's a killer. And but what you can do is if you have a laboratory facility after you dry sift it, theoretically you could take the rest of the material and do some sort of an extract, either an alcohol extract or a water extract or whatever, to try to get more, because with dry sifting, you're throwing away 90% of the THC. That's just the way it goes. Dry sifting yields are low. water sifting's higher, and of course solvent extraction gets almost everything.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out how to do it at scale, which is the difficult part, and producing quality at scale. But the goal was to be as close to the farmer as possible, because the less people who manhandle your product, the better product you're going to have on the shelves. And we thought we could do something like work through the maze of bureaucracy, but it turned out to be a lot more difficult than we originally thought.
It definitely is. There's a number of people. I mean, CryoCant came out with their liquid nitrogen unit. I've never really seen it used, but I have another friend who's been working on a very similar unit that will basically go and reduce biomass from the field direct. Can be right off fresh plants. It can reduce the plant matter into just basically sift. And then that sift can then be taken. It would have to be dried, because if it's off of a fresh plant, the wax membrane is going to hold some moisture. So it is not really dry sift in that sense, it's fresh sift, but then being able to use, a static technique or something to then clean up the sift. I think it'll happen. I think we will see the day where we can, scale sifting to a larger scale, but it's certainly not easy, and it's very counterintuitive. The more you try to get with screens,
that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons, Marcus, that we always tried to dry it for a couple of weeks, cure it for a couple of months. And so we had raisins rather than grapes, reduce that moisture content so you can work with the resin. But I know why people like, fresh live resins, because they're definitely got more terps.
Yeah. I would just like to say, this is
Selena.
Selena.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was like, oh my God, that's Selena.
It's good to see you guys.
We have this incredible dry sift here from Confi, and he can explain it. It's probably some of the most amazing dry sift you'll find in Barcelona. It's absolutely incredibly flavored. And I mean, they are producing some really incredible dry sift material here. This is static clean and Zmuti by Cushman's right here.
Bubbleman inspired me for a long time,
He's been following Bubbleman since 2005, and everything that's been coming out, and just you're the original inspiration, brother. And here's this amazing product being put out organically from the local community here in a smoking club, which it's kind of illegal out there, but it's legal in here. So it really is kind of an embodiment of everything that we're talking about here. Did you have something to say?
Ask him, what is the yield of cleaned dry sift to where you get it cleaned up as much as you can with static? Because that's, I know, more than 90% resin heads. So what's your yield from a kilo of cannabis?
We,
1% static.
1% in static.
Okay. Yeah.
Basically what you're saying, 1 to 2%.
1 or 2%. Okay. Well, I keep
So it's
hoping
the good
for a
stuff.
miracle, but
dude, I mean, the flavor on this is literally
I hope to be smoking it in a couple of days.
Yeah.
Give us the call.
I'm waiting you, bro.
Right on.
Yeah, definitely some of the most beautiful, resinous, odorific stuff on the menu has been the organic dry sift, pressed hash here. It's just so incredibly beautiful. And then you have the aged hashes, which are just a whole other experience for sure. So I actually can't say which one is my favorite. I take it back.
They're all divine.
They're all good.
a lot depends on what the plant used to make the material was and how you grew it.
There's a lot of sought after hash cultivars in this area too. And it's really cool to see what people have chosen here. Some of it's from California, but a lot of it also is just hunted and pheno hunted and created here. And that's the funnest thing about traveling, is seeing the different flavors and techniques used. And it's also fun seeing how different people have been inspired by one another to make these, you know, really phenomenal products for people.
As the web gets wider, the weave gets tighter.
Oh yeah, time for another dab.
Well, Frenchy was just super important in the sense of, I think, passion more than anything. Like, you can talk about specifics and different hash and dry sift or age, but really it was ultimately the attraction of his passion. I think that really is the really spirit that really it's like the spirit that enters it, you know. It's
you
more
called it, Josh. He's a Pashashin.
There you go.
It's so cool that passion rhymes with passion. It just embodies him 110%. Because now I think about passion and I think of passion and then I think of Frenchy. It's just what happens now.
I'm gonna call him a Pashashin from now on. That's a new word created.
No,
just
what
for
we need to do, Mark, is we need to, next time we discover a new terpene, we can name it after Frenchy and call it Frenchine. Right? There's Fenchal. That's close to Frenchine, but
right. There's already Frenchal.
Well, no, that's
canoline.
Fenchal. Yeah, canolaine.
There you go.
All these new compounds that we don't know yet. But yeah, I mean, it's so cool that, you know, again, we live in this great age of information. There's so much video content of Frenchy, right? Like if today's the first time you've ever heard of Frenchy, who's this guy? You got a lot of, you know, video to, you know, right, Kimberly? I mean, there's so much content. And this movie, I'm sure, will maybe give us kind of like the backstage view of his life and his passion. I mean, what are we going to see in the movie that those of us who mostly know Frenchy from just his online persona, what are we going to see in the movie that we wouldn't necessarily know from just seeing stuff on YouTube and stuff? You're muted. She's muted. Did you know that?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was trying to be respectful when the rest of you were talking. I was going to say his love for the farmer, you know, just that's really going to come true so clearly.
Kimberly, since we're on the topic, would you mind explaining to exactly how the live stream is going to go down? Because I've had a couple questions. People ask me, how they're going to be able to view that, where the multiple places are that's going to be live streaming it.
So the idea is we want to have a worldwide celebration of the film to just create a bunch of noise and to have an opportunity to come together after you've all seen the film on the 29th. So we're planning 3 screenings. Each would be at 7 p.m. in the local times. So first in Europe at 7 p.m. The film is 90 minutes. Then after the film, we want to open up a live stream like this. I'll be using a platform called Restream that will have the same kind of living room environment. And then that's going to stream to our Instagram, our Facebook, our YouTube, and our LinkedIn simultaneously. So people don't have to sign up for a new platform. They can just log on to whatever their preferred platform is, and they'll be able to access it there. And so then we'll do the same thing again, East Coast time at 7. And then, so starting the live stream at 8:30 after the film, and then West Coast times. So you can kind of depend on what your schedule is. If you're free in the afternoon and you want to hang out when we do it in Europe, you're welcome to join for Europe. If you want to come for East Coast time, welcome to come for East Coast time. And then, we'll have that ultimate one on the West Coast. And people are creating ticketed events in some of the major cities, and I've got that information on the Frenchy Dreams of website. But also people are going to be doing like Etienne was saying, you know, just having your family and friends together to watch it in your living room and, you know, with your favorite smoking device. So I'm hoping all of you will join us afterwards in the live stream, and that some of you will join me in this kind of living room environment, and we can talk about the film. We can talk about what you're smoking. I hope a lot of people will have a hookah so that we can virtually pass the hookah to each other, because that was Frenchy's kind of preferred methodology to get a bunch of people together and smoke, you know, the hashish. If you put the hashish in the quasar shisha head, you know, the low temperature just bakes the material forever. So great way to have a party and have hashish to smoke forever. I want to do some test events before then. So I'm hoping, Belle, you and I can break out the hookah and show people how to set up their hookah for smoking with hashish. You can also smoke flower in it if you prefer to smoke flower. Just thought that would be a fun way for us all to kind of be united in this event and this little celebration of the film on the 29th, on April 29th.
Awesome, Kimberly. Thank you for sharing that. And we'll put it in the link as well. And I'm sure there'll be some groups out here in Vancouver that will do some live streamings of the, hopefully we'll get book club actually. There's a really cool venue here in Vancouver that does a thing called book club. And it's just basically a place for people from the cannabis community to gather and actually, like you said earlier, be able to have conversations and dialogue. I think it's one of the last most important things missing right now from cannabis. And Belle mentioned it earlier about getting together and smoking. It doesn't necessarily have to be smoking. It can just be consuming, but we need to be able to get together and have gatherings and be able to have these conversations. And I've mentioned it before, the way when bars became a thing, pubs with alcohol, the working class people having these drinks after work, and those conversations would shape the world. Eventually we would get coffee or tea houses next, more of an intellectual group. They would gather and drink their tea, and their conversations would shape the world. And it happened as well with coffee, and it's going to happen with cannabis as well. And it's the one thing they seem to be holding back from us. Even in Canada, federal legalization, big whoopee. We aren't even allowed to have vapor lounges. So book club is a private club. It allows us to gather. They charge a very small fee. I'll talk to Adolfo and Axel and John, the founders of book club, and see if maybe they want to do a live stream.
And I'd love to have you guys as one of the, I can have 10 people online simultaneously. So we'd love to have you, you join us there. I think your son's waiting for you to go and do something else, huh?
He is, absolutely. My wife's been spending the weekend at an off-grid house on the Pacific Ocean around in the Indian Arm, not too far away from where we are right now. So he's very anxious for me to spend the rest of the day with him. He gave me a hard stop. He came in at 11:28. He's like, Dad, 2 more minutes. Oh, 11:29, Dad, just 1 more minute. And then I explained to him what we were talking about. So he has an understanding of that. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks to Madam Cannoli for reaching out and sort of suggesting this. I think it was a great idea. Thank you everyone that Frenchy's touched, and all the hashishines out there that are watching. We have 234 or 240 people that have been watching with us for the last couple of hours. And like I said, I'll put all the links for the streams and anything that I can to facilitate in the description of this video. And in the meantime, I always like to end it with a simple, may the full melt bless your bowl sooner than later. Hey, Tanner, you want to say goodbye too? See you later, everybody.
Bye.
Peace
Thank
out.
you so much.
Bye, everybody.